Welcome to the SDA Housing Podcast, brought to you by NDIS Property Australia. Before starting this episode, we need to provide a general disclaimer. Information contained in this podcast is general in nature only. It does not take into account the objectives, financial situation, or needs of any particular person. You need to consider your financial situation and needs before making any decisions based on the information in this podcast. And you should consider seeking independent and professional advice for your personal circumstances. All right, let's begin.
Hello everybody, my name is Minh and I'm your host for today from NDIS Property Australia, and you're listening to the SDA Housing Podcast, a show that explains, highlights, guides and brings awareness about all things SDA in this ever-changing NDIS world. Today's special guest speaker is Scott Chapman from Able Digital Wellness. Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Minh. Thank you for having me, and hello to everybody listening.
Scott, what is Able Digital Wellness?
Yeah, mate, Able Digital Wellness was an idea that came to light about 18 months ago, where we deliver weekly exercise, nutrition, and mental wellness content into disability housing, and also to support workers and individuals, but our primary focus at the moment is around disability housing. The idea is to give support workers tools, hints, and tips in order to provide a happier, healthier style of care for people that they're providing care for.
Wonderful. So how long has the organisation been around for now?
So the idea was sort of concepted about 18 months ago, and then we spent the next sort of 10 to 12 months from there building the product and getting partners like Griffith University and the Hopkins Centre for Research and Dr. Dinesh Palapana, so that we could make sure that we had the product correct. And we went through a series of testing in different SIL environments and SDA environments to make sure that the product was actually, was easy to implement from a support worker perspective and a client perspective. And then we really launched properly into market following testing around sort of 2.5, 3 months ago. Although we were taking clients prior to that, the bulk of our dealings have been in the last few months, which is super exciting because it's all up from here.
Wonderful. So prior to launching your research into the sector, what did it tell you about the demand? How big of a demand is there for this product in the NDIS space for what you guys provide?
It's an interesting question, Min. So my research started with my nephew. I have an intellectually disabled nephew that lives in a group disability house on the Gold Coast. And I was fortunate enough to watch him transition out of my parents' house into his own SIL. But then at the same time, I watched him exercise choice and control in a very poor manner, I suppose, given that he was drinking ginger beer for breakfast and making really poor food choices and not doing a lot of exercise. And whilst the support workers and provider around him were all fantastic, it's very difficult for them to know exactly what to do in certain situations in order to positively encourage better eating and positively encourage exercise. So when I sort of was watching him and the habits within his SIL, we then started to do some research, and the stats showed us that there was a much larger issue than just my nephew, with 42% of adults with a disability rating their health as poor or fair, and over 70% of adults or individuals over 15 with a disability don't meet their minimum activity requirements a week in order to stay in a healthy weight range. And when I looked at that, and you start to determine what the barriers are in and around that, whilst there's traditional barriers like your geographical location, finance, accessibility, all of those kind of things. One of the main things that we sort of identified was there was a real opportunity to work with support workers in order to upskill them and arm them in a way that we provided really easy to follow content that they could implement, whether it's inside the SIL in a common living area or out in a park environment or down at the beach or wherever the individual was happy. So research showed us that there was most definitely a problem. But what it also showed us was there was no real solution to this problem as yet. And that's where we sort of decided to fit ourselves in alongside other fantastic organisations like WeFlex, who are doing a great job in the one-on-one space.
Did you find that many of the SIL providers in your research didn't have the resources to upskill their support workers to deliver an equivalent kind of outcome that you guys are delivering on this little platform you're offering participants?
Yeah, I think again, interesting question. I think that everybody has the resources to a degree. It comes down to what your priorities are from A to Z, right? And whilst health and wellness definitely is a priority for a lot of providers, it's also a challenging thing to implement due to choice and control. And then therefore providers will more often than not, focus on just making environments as good as they can, where I think sometimes they miss the ease of, positive suggestion around food choice, because everybody inside a SIL and an SDA have to choose what they want to eat for dinner or breakfast or lunch every single week. Simply by providing more resources and easier products and easier to read menus and things along those lines, it kind of takes the need for them to upskill away a degree, because that's what we're here for. We want to just simply provide the tools and resources so that a support worker from any background, whether they have like fitness or dislike it or not, can log on, see the exercises, see the meal choices, and simply go, hey, let's do this together today so we can not only work on your health and wellness, but we can build a better relationship together.
Exactly. I mean, in today's society, as you may know and agree with, we as human beings are lazy and procrastinating in our own, normal self-life. And we couldn't expect someone who's disabled, who's not as, more able-bodied and intellectually, aware of health and wellness and diet, to be able to look after themselves, because that's hence the reason why they are in a high needs environment, being the disability sector.
You're spot on, and I'll use my nephew as an example. He's probably, I would argue, 25 to 35 kilos overweight. But Dan would never see himself as overweight. He doesn't see himself as fat. He's loving his life and living his best life every single day, which on one hand is fantastic, and I never want him to change. But there's a moral and ethical obligation from myself as a family member, but also all providers out there, to make sure they're doing whatever they possibly can in order to provide healthy outcomes and a healthier style of care for their clients. Because when you look at preventable health issues, preventable death, type 2 diabetes is rife in this country. If we can move the needle in a positive manner on any one of those things by simply providing resources, then I think it's a win for all of us.
Yeah. So it's resources and also awareness, because, and I'll be blunt and say it. People who are in accessible environments, like the wheelchair-bound participants, they can't exercise like we can. Like we go for a walk, we go for a run. We can choose and cook our own foods, but they're more limited, those participants, and they're relied upon others to help them.
Absolutely.
And those providers. So through no fault of their own, being in a wheelchair, they cannot physically exercise.
No, you're spot on.
They can't.
And you're spot on with what you said as well, Min, in terms of it is very challenging sometimes, even if you're a small or large provider, when you've got a number of clients that are on your caseload, you've got a number of support workers. We've got a support worker shortage across the country at the moment. To stop and go, hey, let's make time to try and find a way to provide activity and or exercise inclusion for an individual who is utilising a wheelchair, or an individual in our care who has an intellectual impairment. It is a challenge, right? And if you don't come from a background where you enjoy exercise and wellness, and or you believe that it's something that should be included a lot, it doesn't unfortunately become one of the priorities in your environment. On the flip side of that, however, what we've found is, because we're still new, every single provider that we've been talking to is very open and very excited and enthusiastic about implementing our product, because it's incredibly cost effective, but it is literally just giving providers and support workers additional tools, where we have for instance, a wheelchair program written by exercise physiologists at Griffith University that's tailored completely for individuals utilising a wheelchair. Different difficulty levels, so we can cater towards different reasons as to why you're there. You might have been an amputee, a spinal cord injury, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, but we provide a whole number of different exercises so that you don't need to have an additional budget to try and get transportation to a gym. You don't then need to try and find a gym that is accessible. You don't then need to try and find a personal trainer that understands how to train somebody with a disability. You can stay in the enjoyment of your own SDA or SIL with the people who like and trust being your support workers, but work on content that's specifically curated for you.
Sure. So speaking of open-minded, have you come across any SILs who are not open-minded to your product?
Yeah, unfortunately we have. And I think it's probably not so much that they aren't open-minded to the product, but they aren't open-minded to paying for the product. They would rather the clients within those environments utilise their own planned funds to pay for the platform, which, look, in our mind, the platform was set up for individuals to utilize their own MDIS plans. So we get that, and we understand that there's going to be providers that want to do that. But given that, we're talking $66 a month per SIL or SDA in the country, that's a negligible amount of money if you break that down across, 1 to 4 clients inside that resident in order to receive this kind of content. So, I think there's a number of justifiable ways that any provider in the country could justify paying that and or find ways to recoup that minimal investment, in particular when it means that they're providing healthier options for the people in those houses, but we also then donate a membership to somebody who doesn't have an NDIS plan every time we get a new member. So they're all automatically paying it forward to other individuals who are desperate for this kind of content anyway.
Sorry, I'm confused, Scott.
Talk to me.
$66 a month.
Correct.
For a SIL provider to pay for to be used in their business.
Correct. Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, we've had a lot of people that have come back and gone, "Whoa, we must have misunderstood." So it's how much now? And look, we did a lot of discussions around price point when we were building the platform, and we could have charged a significant amount more. But my desire was to get accessible content out, right? So the more inaccessible I made it because of cost, that kind of defeated the mission. We set up our business to be a business of scale. So once we hit a large number of people utilizing the platform on a monthly basis, the business becomes commercially viable over a longer period of time. But yeah, the idea was I could walk into a provider and go, "Hey, Mr. or Mrs. SDA or SIL provider, $66 a month is all it's going to cost you. You can utilize that for up to 4 clients within your SIL. You can create profiles for each one of those people. You can send activity reports to their family or support network. We provide you with exercise physiologist, dietitian, and psychologist prepared content relevant for people in your home." And we want it to be cheap, because we want literally every provider in the country to go, "Well, this is a no-brainer. Let's buy it." Because if we get that to happen, then everybody living in an SDA or SIL environment around the country will have access to better content, which will mean they will have better health and longer health choices, longer lifespans as a result of better health choices across their life. Plus, we get to donate a heap of memberships to people who also need it but don't have funding capacity to get it.
Again, I'm still confused. $66 a month for any 4 participants or 4 participants in the house?
So 4 participants in the house. So if you own one SDA on the Gold Coast and you have 4 residents living inside that house and you buy it as a license for your business, then I will charge you $66 each month to deliver that content.
Mate, I don't know why anyone would say no to that.
Neither do I, Minh, and I'm glad. So I'm glad I'm on here today.
Well,
I'm hoping.
Let's create a website. Let's create a website called thetightasssills.com.au.
Yeah, look, a lot of it comes down to, it's funny, right? We've had a number of providers that might go, "Listen, this is all fantastic. Margins are low in SIL, or we're really strapped for time, and there's, by the time we get through all of our normal reporting and getting everyone out of bed and ready for their day programs and things, there's not a lot of time left." And it's an education process, right? Like anything, we're a brand new kind of product in the market. There isn't effectively a platform in the world at the moment where they've specifically built exercise, nutrition, and wellness content for people with a disability. So, the first hurdle for us is overcoming people's lack of knowledge in terms of what it is that we do. But one of the big things that we really emphasize and talk about a lot is, you could do 10 minutes of exercise a week, right? If you're doing an extra 10 minutes a week, then that's 10 minutes more than you were doing last week, which means you are going to be 10 minutes better off in the long run for doing that. If we create tiny habits over a longer period of time, then people will naturally evolve into wanting to do more exercise. In a number of the SILs that we're in, the ones that we've been in for longer periods of time, support workers have given us a lot of feedback around, we've got less behavioural reports being written up. Staff have more harmonious relationships with clients because they're interacting with exercise and on different cooking missions with them. So they're forming better relationships. And guess what? You have to do meal planning anyway. You have to help prepare and go shopping to get groceries for the week. So why not do it in a more of a considered way? So many SILs I go into, the individuals will eat pasta literally every night because it's their choice to eat what they want. And, it's carbonara one night, it's spaghetti bowl another night, it's ravioli another night. You have 5 nights of pasta, you're going to feel sluggish. You're going to, mass carb load. You're going to put on weight if you're not meeting minimum activity levels. But if you then flip that around and we start to introduce one recipe a week or a fortnight where we're slowly beginning to change habit, and we're giving people some exercises that are easy to do, what happens is people will start to feel happier. They get better sleep patterns. And they're working with their support workers in a better manner. It just creates this full circle, better lifestyle within an environment. And that is what we should be doing, right? Creating environments where people are happy and healthy 24/7.
Well, mate, if you give me spaghetti bolognese every night, I'll be happy as well.
And that's the problem, right? Most of us would be, Min.
Look, our listeners are probably wondering why I've invited your organisation to our podcast, because our podcast really is about bringing awareness to the investor community with the SDA market and also the NDIS affiliate organisations that are associated with SDA. And, it's important to bring awareness to the normal community of investors that, hey, it's about looking after your participants in the house,
Absolutely.
in the dwelling. Giving them a happy environment, a healthy environment, give them a longer life expectancy. Is that the word? Longer life, longer lifestyle, better lifestyle overall, making them happy. Because at the end of the day, it's about ensuring that the families of the participants are happy or glad that they're being looked after in the right way. And if we can give the right resources to these housing providers and care providers, whatever those resources are, then that's the key. And I loved what I heard from Siobhan, your lady who I met at the event in Logan 2 months ago. And I thought to myself, we got to bring awareness to your organisation, Able Digital Wellness, because the more people, the more investors, the more providers, the more families who have participants that are aware of this. Heck, even I would want to use this platform myself. It will make me happy, it'll make the participants happy, and make our investors happy, because every little thing that we do to make a participant's life that much more better, be it a bigger home, more storage space, more activities, more lifestyle guidance, more wellness and whatnot, that's going to be fruitful for everyone in that environment, the workers and the residents.
You're spot on. There's a whole bunch of positive commercialization aspects to this, right? Like anyone who is a provider that is running an SDA or a SIL wants to minimise vacancy rates. The best way to minimise vacancy rates is to make yourself a provider of choice, right? So the more alternate things that you can offer clients out there in order to make their house a home, the more likelihood you are of reducing your vacancy rates, therefore making it more profitable over time, right? That's a no-brainer. At the same time, one of the number one problems in SDAs and SILs is staff churn. And, when we have a whole bunch of people that are cycling in and out of environments, it doesn't create a happy and harmonious environment for individuals living inside those houses. So, again, identifying that, we provide a whole bunch of content that's just directly relevant to support workers, giving them hints and tips on how to communicate better with the clients inside of a house. How do you deal with difficult situations and build harmonious relationships with families? All of these kind of things, because we want to support the support workers' journey inside a SIL as much as we want to support the clients. But if we do that, not only do you become a provider of choice, but also a housing provider of choice and an employer of choice. So it's a full circle win. It's interesting as well, when you mentioned before, a lot of the people who would be listening to your podcast at the moment are more often than not probably investors or builders that are actually building these SDA homes. And if I can ask you a question, I mean, what would you say the average cost to build a 3-bedroom dwelling would be in the SDA environment?
Minimum $700,000.
Okay, so if I could tell you then, as an investor or as a builder who's building these houses, to then go and find a provider, that for as little as $1,300, you could then go to a provider and say, hey, with this house comes a 2-year subscription to this health and wellness platform, offering you all of this kind of content that you can use with your clients. That is a fraction of the cost in terms of the overall scheme of things from a build perspective. But again, as an organisation building these houses, giving a provider a different asset or different option to choose something stands you out from the rest as well. So, we want to talk to people building, people providing, parents, family, friends, anyone, because again, we really believe that our product has been tested and it's proven that it works in this environment. And again, the big linchpin is for every member that we get who pays, we can give this to somebody who can't afford to pay. And there's 3.7 million people with a disability in this country who don't have an NDIS plan, who don't have the luxury of being able to go into an SDA or SIL, who may struggle with weight or meeting their minimum activity requirements or dietary things. we want to make sure they have access to this content as well. And this is a channel for us to do so.
So if a SIL provider doesn't want to pay the $66 a month for their group house, can an individual participant sign up directly to your organisation? And what's the cost for them?
Yep, same deal, $66 a month out of their plan. But what we would encourage that happens in that case is we would really welcome the opportunity to deal with the SIL provider anyway. If they make the conscious choice that they don't want to pay for it, but they have a client who does, we would still want to do an onboarding session with the support workers in that house to educate them on the best way to implement the content. Because again, 99% of people living in SIL, SDA, all these kind of environments require the support of a support worker to help them through these things. That's why they're there, right? So, we would want to make sure that at a minimum commitment from the provider, they were happy for us to give their support workers information on the best implementation practice as well. But yes, short answer is yes, they can use their own NDIS plan.
So going back, I want to ask you another stupid question. Maybe I'm saying this wrong. You're telling me an individual can get this plan for $66 a month.
Correct.
But yet before, 20 minutes ago, you told me if the provider does not want to spend the money themselves for 4 people in the house, there may be a bit of a challenge there. But surely those 3 or 4 participants in that house would have had some funding to tap into to pay for this cost.
Absolutely. Look,
so there's no reason to say no.
No, again, I agree. And the challenge, again, is breaking down that barrier and getting in front of people to fully explain that. Because there's a slight difference if you're someone who subscribes via their own NDIS plan versus a provider. There's a slight difference in the content that you receive. The provider actually ends up with more content if they pay, because we provide stuff that's relevant to their support staff to try and upskill them at the same time. But you're spot on in what you're saying. There's 1,001 ways that a provider can recoup those costs via clients within that house. And when you're looking again at 4 clients in a house at something around 50 cents a day to have the content provided to them, whether you can find a way to recoup it or not really should be irrelevant, because it's that negligible a cost.
The average funding per participant is $74,000 a year in Australia, and only 3/4 is used up. So still a quarter of that 74 grand still not used.
Yeah, and we can come.
So that's absolutely silly to. Yeah.
We come from multiple different budget lines as well, and one of the things that we made sure we did when we built the platform was we made it so that we didn't need to come out of a therapeutic budget line. So we're not trying to compete with your allied health budget. We're not trying to take money away from your current EP, dietitian, physiotherapist, or anything along those lines. We can bill to a core and or capacity budget through a number of different lines there, making sure then that we are supporting the current allied health plans that you have in place, meaning that, again, everybody's a winner, right? Because they're generally the budget lines that have the most capacity within them, such a small amount of money, and then it can support your supports that are already there.
Wonderful. Well, we're pretty active in certain parts of Australia. I'd like to definitely introduce you to some people in Perth, some big non-profit organisations which are SIL providers and housing providers. We're going to do a lot of work with them in Western Australia.
Yeah, I'd love that.
And that would actually add to our value proposition for what we do in the property space, because there's nothing like having a 14, 15 units in one location, and there's 15 participants there. Another one over here, same thing. 7 villas over there down the road, or different houses and whatnot with 2 or 3 or 4 participants as well. And having a part of the package provided to the investor and the household, not have to worry about if it's funded by the NDIS, if it's funded by the participant, if it's funded by the SIL. It's just part of the offering by the investor to the part of the offering by the developer and the builder to the outcome of the participants there to help them out. Because we are now at the stage now where we're looking to add as much value-added positives to a home environment for participants. And these are examples here. Example is courtyard space for every bedroom, more storage space in a house, maybe having a vehicle for most houses that are accessible to be used for their own use, full automation in the house, AI, AT tech in a house, and health and wellness platforms available to make them happy. So
spot on.
You tell me, anyone out there who would say no to that kind of environment with all that as freebies.
Exactly. And that's, developers should
they
be
wouldn't say no.
They should be looking for those points of difference, And given that, again, as I said a minute ago, they could incorporate a 2-year subscription to our platform for probably less cost than what it costs for the doorknobs in that entire house, then, it kind of becomes a no-brainer, in my opinion anyway.
Matt, that's why we're talking to you. So we'd love to definitely explore that opportunity with all of our transactions around Australia. Like we're doing, 100 a year in transactions for new homes and new apartments, and we'd love to have this as part of the value proposition to all our transactions for our investors, right? Whether our investors agree or not, we still love to be part of it all. So whether the investors pay for it, or the builder pays for it, or the participants pay for it, or the seal provider pays for it, or the NDIS pays for it, or we pay for it, we'd like to see that this kind of product is part of all of our rollouts of SDA dwellings around Australia.
That's amazing, mate. And can I just say, it's, with startups like mine and missions that we're on, none of this happens without individuals like yourself who not only believe in what it is that we're trying to do, but importantly believe on the outcome for the client. Because at the end of the day, doesn't matter what I'm doing or you're doing or the investor or the provider or the developer or whomever, everything should be channeled towards the end customer, being the client living inside that house. And the sooner we all really focus every bit of our energy in and around that, I think that organizations will find out that they'll become more profitable naturally. But ultimately then everybody who deserves access to content like this or access to a house that is livable and they enjoy to be in with clients who they enjoy to be around, the sooner we can all arrive at that same place, the better the world's going to be.
Hey, tell us more about your organisation. You've got the advisory board here on your website, and also yourself and Tim and Siobhan.
Yeah.
Tell us more about your team there.
Yeah, for sure.
Who's in the background there?
So myself, I came from a career in media, and then I got out of media and went into fast food restaurants, and then I sat on the board of a really large not-for-profit child protection organisation for a long time. And then obviously my commitment to trying to provide healthier outcomes for my nephew is what drew me to Able. I was fortunate enough to start the business with a great mate of mine, Tim Black, who he and I worked together in action sports many moons ago. But Timmy's, been a multimedia designer for a very long time and is one of the kindest humans you'll ever come across. As I said earlier, though, we weren't allied health people. We weren't from a disability sector. So we really needed to make sure that we had people and partners in place to help us provide tangible outcomes. So, that first period of time, we focused on individuals to start with. So Dr. Dinesh Palapana, who was last year's Queensland Australian of the Year, he's also a quadriplegic doctor, lawyer, celebrated author. He's the guy is amazing. If you haven't read his book, you should do. It's called Stronger. So Dinesh heads up our advisory board because obviously he very much has lived experience, but also, once likened to me that the average still is a roof with 4 walls. And, it's no better than a prison system sometimes. And that literally made me cry because I live with the realization that my nephew is in an environment, I wouldn't call it a prison system, but, there are a lot of people like him who are, especially, people who are, don't have family. So, the better we can make all of these environments, the better off we're all going to be. So having Dinesh on the board was a really important thing for us. And then we have Professor Elizabeth Kendall. So Elizabeth Kendall is one of the lead directors of research at the Hopkins Centre for Research. Again, another exceptional human. She's spent the majority of her life in disability research, post-injury rehabilitation with Menzies Health Institute and Hopkins and Griffith. And Elizabeth's commitment to us is also helping us to review and research outcomes to ensure that our platform can create a more sustainable ecosystem within the NDIS, but also significantly reduce preventable health issues over a longer period of time. Because again, we believe that if there's a balanced diet and everybody's meeting minimum activity requirements a week, then preventable illness and therefore preventable death will significantly decrease over a long period of time. And then we have partnerships in place with organisations like Disability Sport Australia, Livin, the Black Dog Institute, Virtual Psychologists, Griffith University, all of these kind of organisations, because again, the idea isn't just to give people exercise at home, it's to then try and motivate them to pathway them into a sport so that they can hang out with people in a more socially inclusive environment, which is why we're partnering with Disability Sport Australia and their National Referral Hub program. Organisations like the Black Dog Institute and Live and Black Dog Institute created a fantastic program called Well, it's just slipped me for a moment. But it's all specifically related to individuals with an intellectual impairment. And, they help to provide some content for that links back to to their platform, as do the guys at Live and Virtual Psychologists. So, as I said earlier, the big thing for me was making sure that we had the right organisations and the right people to actually invoke real change, because the business wasn't set up to be a money maker. I mean, we obviously want it to be successful, and we obviously want to make money from the business. But our view from day one was, if we get the piece right, which is making sure that the end user actually gets benefit and they can see that, and then their family can see that, then the business side of things will take care of itself.
Exactly. So, content. Who's creating the content and adding all the information to the platform? Who does that?
So we do that. So we work closely. Like yesterday, for instance, we were on a whole day filming with an exercise physiologist from our Griffith Uni partner team. So Kelly Clancy, Dr. Kelly Clancy, she was working with a client of ours who's actually a resident in an Aruma Sill House. Aruma's a client of ours. So Cody came over for the day in a paid capacity. He spent a day filming with us, so filming a range of exercise. And then we build the program so that it drip feeds content every week. So every single week inside your platform, you will receive 3 exercise videos, some dietary information or nutritional information, a recipe that's relevant to that dietary information, and then some mental wellness content relevant to all of that. So Griffith Uni dietetics team and exercise physiology team help us to build the content for exercise and nutrition. And then Black Dog, Virtual Psychologist, and Livin have helped us to curate the content for the mental wellness section. And then in the support worker content section, it's a combination of support workers, social workers, psychologists, ourselves, who all create content in and around, quite simple things, just to try and give hints and tips on, better practice.
That's awesome, mate. I think you guys are doing a great job. Are there many other competitors out there who are trying to achieve the same outcome as you guys with some platform online for participants?
Look, from an online perspective, no. It's interesting that the competitor conversation and comparison, put it this way, there's nobody doing what we're doing globally in terms of a platform specifically designed for people with a disability, specifically designed content for people with a disability, delivered through a digital platform where they can work out anywhere in the country with an internet connection. There's a number of allied health providers doing telehealth, which we don't want to go into. There's a number of fantastic providers that are doing, in-gym experiences and upskilling, support workers to be personal trainers and upskilling personal trainers to deal with people with a disability. I mentioned WeFlex earlier. They're a fantastic organisation doing great things. But I see all of us as complementing everything that each other does. Like as I said earlier, we're not here to try and compete with allied health services. We want to support plans that are already in place through allied health. If you are somebody who's utilising a gym with a personal trainer through an organisation like WeFlex, there's going to come a time where transportation is going to be a struggle or cost may be a struggle. So having an additional option where you can just be at home and do what you want to do is definitely going to be needed. So, I think if we all found great ways to work together, then, those glaring statistics around preventable health issues and also minimum activity requirements and diabetes and obesity rates and things like that, we'll start to see dramatically decrease. So if anybody is listening and sees me as a competitor, please don't. Please pick up the phone or send me an email and let's work together for healthier outcomes.
Well, truth be told, Scott, if an investor wants a long-term tenant, they want to be healthy and well for the next 20, 30 years, not having diabetes and having a heart attack and high blood pressure.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And, that's such a real thing, Minh. Like I looked at my nephew and if he had have continued on the path that he was on, and again, I need to stress it was no fault of the provider. It was just around trying to find best practice within choice and control. But, if he had have continued on that path as often as he did, as so many people can, diabetes was right in front of him, and what comes with that is a whole raft of other avoidable health issues and early death, and that would have been him. And I couldn't sit by and, watch him live a younger life purely because there wasn't anything out there to help.
Mate, do you often do any annual events for your organisation? Get-togethers with many other SIL providers. I think you should. I don't know. You have a great product, and I think it'd be great for you to bring more awareness, like the Arumas, the Life Without Barriers, all the large MS Queensland, all those big organisations to really celebrate your success and what you guys are doing to bring awareness to the community. I think we should do as much as we can to help you guys out and grow and go from there.
You're awesome, mate. Thank you. And the answer is not yet, but we're planning on we're planning on trying to run a relatively big wellness event in the not too distant future, where we want the focus to be around outcomes rather than just us, and we're looking at organisations like Whatability, who is a fantastic support provider, Australian-based now, Australia-wide now, that incorporates so much activity and health and wellness into their support workers that are providing day support. Organisations like Mabel, who are making sure that they're matching support workers to like-minded participants. Ourselves, plan managers who are actively assisting at Leap In and NDSP have been two great plan managers who are actively assisting clients in order to try and find additional ways to access health and wellness content via their NDIS plans. Like, I want to get all of those kind of organisations together to go, what can we do collectively to educate the entire, system in ways that we can provide healthier outcomes for individuals. And, what we've done so far, we've been, lucky and successful, I suppose, that we're about to start a statewide rollout with Queensland State Government Department of Disability Housing in Queensland. So they've made a significant commitment to offering healthy choice for their clients. A rumour is underway at the moment in a number of locations across the country where they're offering it as well. And we're meeting with South Australia State Government next week to start the rollout process with them, along with a number of smaller providers, Anchored Care, Spiritability. There's a whole raft of them who are actively involved now. We just need more.
That's great. Hey, we did Debbie in our office did a podcast with a lady called Tanya Gorry about 2 months ago. She owns the brand NDOS.network.
Yep.
It's called the Wholesome Warrior or something.
Oh, yeah.
I'll give the details.
I've done a podcast with her before.
Yeah, it's good. Mate, she has a great, massive online presence on Facebook and whatnot. Mate, grassroots marketing is where getting to the families and the participants is the way to go for you. I'd like to definitely have published this podcast with you, with this we're doing now, by late December or early January, and then bring awareness to what you're doing to our 800 followers on Instagram and whatnot, and promote this podcast on LinkedIn to other organisations to be aware of. And I want to introduce you to a few of our connections we've made in Canberra and in Perth the last few months as well. I think
I'd love that.
There's definitely a big market for that for you guys out there.
Yeah, you're a legend. I really appreciate it. I mean, as I said before, it's not without support from organisations like yourselves that, gets the little guys like us underway, and then, the better we can do, the healthier the world becomes. That's the ultimate goal.
Yeah. My wife would love you because anything you do to make me healthy, and less sugary, fatty foods would be great.
Now, listen, I didn't say that I practice what I preach a lot of the time. I just ate it. But it's all about those, forming tiny habits, and if we can all cut one thing back here and there, then we're better off in the long run. Yes.
So our internal marketing team here will definitely get on the ball with the next few weeks with marketing your brand to our network. I'd love to talk to you more on the side about how we can contribute your product and platform to our dwellings across Australia.
I love that, mate.
Developers and builders. All right. And then a direct connection between you and the supervisors we work with directly to explain why we're pushing this brand. So Luba from our office will give you an email today or tomorrow about getting your logo, JPEG, and access to the videos you may have to promote on our social medias, and we'll talk about incorporating your products more in the cost of our builds and everything as well. Yeah.
I love it, mate. Thank you so much. I can't, I said it a ton, but I can't thank you enough. It's again this kind of support that means the world to me, but also should mean the world to a whole bunch of families out there, because the ripple effect long term is significant. So thank you,
mate. If we can change one life at a time, that's
you're absolutely bang on. And I can promise you, like the feedback that we've been getting from our clients, across the country directly leads to that. There are tangible outcomes for, we are writing half as many behavioural reports now as what we were the week and month prior, because clients are happier and healthier, getting better sleep patterns, which means less conflict between clients, less conflict between support workers. So our house is happy and harmony. We've got a client who's at the Logan Lee Service Centre in the Department of Disability. She required 3 support workers to get her out of her mobility aid 6 months after utilising ABLE. She only needs 1.5 now. So, she still needs assistance, but, we're reducing potential for work cover, accidents with staff. We're creating a healthier lifestyle. Like, the amount of people we've already impacted positively is awesome. and we're only just getting started.
Cool. Mate, thank you so much for your time. Let's connect up next week or 2 weeks and go from there. Okay?
Love it. Thank you so much, mate. Have a great afternoon.
See you, mate.
See you, Min. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please make sure you are subscribed and following us so you can keep in the loop with all of our upcoming episodes. We would really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star rating, a written review, and to share this podcast with those that could benefit. Until next time, catch you on the next episode.